Whoo, baby, it is a dog crud day today, but we're out here. We're out here through rain, sleet, or snow to do another little video here. Gonna give you a little walk around. I'm actually in Brooklyn. We're gonna be going back to the well, the dark side well, to talk to you about some dark episodes here in Brooklyn's history. Eric, how the hell are you?
I'm doing great.
Staying dry?
A little wet.
A little wet. We'll make it through. It's okay. We're gonna bask in the dryness of amazing history and just great times. What the hell am I talking about? Anyways, I'm in front of Borough Hall here. Borough Hall, which was built in 1848 as the City Hall of Brooklyn when it was still a city. It got consolidated into the 5 boroughs of New York in 1898. That's all beside the point. We're going to talk about all these dark history. Today's a good one, man. You're going to want to stick around to the end. We got some really good stories and stuff to talk about today. But I guess before we get started, guys, check out the Patreon. Huge help. Keeps us covered with all the. How you doing? Yeah, it's great. Keeps us covered with all of our, nice threads. I guess this jacket that I wear in every video and all that stuff. Also, too, check out, subscribe. That helps a lot. And like the video. It helps us keeps us at the top of those analytics, right? Right above all those, reaction videos. But anyways, I guess before we get started, Eric, how you doing?
Doing pretty good.
Yeah.
So far.
Yeah,
I get a plastic bag on that Patreon.
Yeah, maybe someone will cough up 5 cents for a plastic bag for the camera. Anyways, yeah, I think we're ready to go, man. I think getting into the darkness. All right, should we do it?
Yeah, let's go.
Let's go to the first spot. All right, so we are here at our first stop. We're actually at Empire Boulevard and Flatbush Avenue, right here at the corner of Prospect Park next to the Botanical Gardens. Very nice, you should check it out. And you may be noticing that it's sunny now and kind of nice, and it's not because I filmed this on a different day than the rest of it, right, Eric?
Right.
Yeah, it's but I am still wearing the same things. It's like almost 70 degrees out and I'm wearing a coat for continuity. This is all for you, you freaks. You better enjoy it. Anyways, this is the first spot. And I came here because this is the site of actually the deadliest subway disaster in subway history, actually. Pretty dark, all right? Anyways, it happened on November 1st, 1918. Around 6:42 p.m., people were leaving work. What happened was the train operated by the BRT, the Brooklyn Rapid Transit, left around Park Row in Lower Manhattan to come down here. It was driven by a guy named Anthony Luciano. He actually went by Billy Lewis. He changed his name, and he was 25 years old driving the train, and he actually had only had 2 hours of subway classroom instruction, never had actually driven one, and the reason he was driving was because there was actually a strike. And the BRT was a private company and they wanted that money, baby, so they had to keep it going. Anyways, the guy was 25 years old, 2 hours of classroom instruction. The guy shouldn't have, he was driving the subway. He had no business, driving a Segway or a shopping cart at Fairway. Sorry, that's a stretch. Anyways, you get it. He had no business, right? So he's taking the subway, he's driving it down here where you can actually still see the track, and he actually derailed and hit an abutment that's still actually around here. The shuttle actually uses this now, and it turns around here. And he killed 100 people, like 250 people injured. The train cars were made of wood at the time, so there's wood shards everywhere, people hitting their heads. Just a total, absolute disaster. The train cars were completely destroyed. 25 years old, man. This kid was driving the subway. I mean, he was probably, smoking doobies and listening to Doja Cat or something. And this was the subway stop was actually called the Malbone Street subway stop. They actually changed it to Empire Boulevard to get rid of that Malbone, stigma. There's actually still a little sliver here named Malbone Street. But this was in 1918, too. This was actually during the Spanish flu epidemic, and he actually had lost a second daughter to the Spanish flu that week, man. This guy was having a bad week. So he came and he actually had this accident in the midst of all of that. At the time, there was this Public Services Commission that kind of oversaw the subways and stuff for the state. And the following week, there was an election that Tuesday, and the incumbent lost for governor based on Al Smith's criticism based on this, disaster. Al Smith went on to help build, after his career in politics, the Empire State Building. Yeah, that's right, the Empire State Building, pretty cool. You guys may know. Yeah, big fans of the Empire State Building. Yeah, I don't know if you guys know the Empire State Building. It's that building that was built in 1931 to be used later in Sleepless in Seattle. That was the whole purpose of building it. Well, you can see the little trains going by here. So after the accident, Luciano was actually indicted for manslaughter along with 5 other people. They actually moved the case out to Long Island because obviously people were pretty upset here. You didn't know you'd get a fair trial. You know how mad people get when there's like a 20-minute delay. Imagine how mad they'd get when they're dead or killed. So they moved it out to Long Island. He's actually acquitted, but he leaves New York and he moves out to Arizona. And the story he always told his grandkids and stuck with you. He actually changed his name back to Luciano, you know, trying to just get away from all of it rather than Billy Lewis. And he actually told his family, they didn't even know he was a train conductor at all, ever. He told them he was an architect in New York, an architect of death. Right, Eric?
Right.
Anyways, makes sense, I guess, too. You don't really want to tell your kids about all that stuff, so you know, you're going to sit your kids down and be like, oh, hey, kids, did I ever tell you the story about how I killed 100 people on the subway? Gather around. Let me tell it to you while we eat our, Dunkaroos or something. Anyways, this all happened here. In fact, in the aftermath, the City Transit Commission was started in 1921, which eventually led to the opening of the IND railway for the city 10 years later. And that was kind of the beginning of the actual the public version of the subway and actually pulling the private lines into the public service of mass transit, which is kind of interesting. But it all happened right here next to the Botanical Garden at the corner of Empire and Flatbush at what was before Malbone Street. What do you think of that story, Eric?
Terrific.
Pretty good, huh?
Carnage.
Carnage and terrible. So now we have to leave this spot and go to the next spot and also go back to terrible weather. How does that sound? We're going to travel in time.
Not good.
And meteorology. Well, anyways, I'm going to do it. All right. See you guys at the next spot. All right, so we're at our next stop, which is 340 Dean Street. This building is actually new, but this is the location of what used to be another building, obviously. And it was where in 1952, the world's most notorious bank robber was apprehended. His name was Willie Sutton. He was arrested right here because this is where he was living and hiding out. In case you don't know, he was like the Babe Ruth of bank robberies, which back then was like the Michael Jordan of compliments. Anyways, he was apprehended right here. So he grew up in Brooklyn. He actually grew up in Irish Town. He actually dropped out of school before he got to high school. He was stealing from his teachers. He was that like antsy to steal, and he became a prolific bank robber. They called him Willie the Actor because he was so good at disguising himself. They called him Slick Willie. Very, very good at what he did. In fact, he robbed, they say, 100 banks and made off with more than $2 million. He was in and out of prison. He actually escaped federal maximum security prison 3 times. And this is kind of interesting. He actually attempted it once and bailed and aborted last second. But it was actually on the Antiques Roadshow, the plaster cast he made of his own face. They actually were like brought, someone had the plaster cast of Willie Sutton. Yeah, I just made a Antiques Roadshow reference, which I think makes me legally entitled to Social Security. But it's okay, it was a cool episode. So anyways, what happened was, his latest attempt at actually escaping was in 1947. He escaped federal maximum security prison, and he hid out. He was still robbing banks, etc. until 1950, when the FBI released its first ever most wanted list. And guess who was on it? Willie Sutton. That's right, what an honor. The first ever FBI's most wanted list, he was on it, right there. And they handed it out, put it all over the neighborhood. They also put it at different tailors around town because he was such a well-dressed guy. They figured someone would see it, right? Kind of cool. Isn't that interesting, Eric?
Backwards compliment.
It is a backwards compliment. So they left it at all different places around town, and this kid, 24-year-old kid named Arnold Schuster, sees it. He's actually a tailor's son. He sees it, and he kind of logs in his brain, and he's at the subway one day, and he sees good old Slick Willie, and he follows him from the subway to the building that was located right here. He tells the police where he's located, and they arrest him. Now, back then, he was lauded by the newspapers and media outlets as being a hero, you know, a citizen doing his civic duty, an example of how the FBI's most wanted list could work. Only thing is 3 weeks later, He's gunned down. Yikes. And they say they never caught the killer, but they say that it was Albert Anastasia, who we covered in the Mob Hits video. Yeah. Anyways, he was gunned down in a barber shop. You can check out that video if you want to hear more about that. But they say that Albert Anastasia, who was the head of Murder Inc., by the way, Murder Incorporated, very benign, benevolent corporation. They say he saw the thing on the news and he's like, I hate squealers. And he wanted the kid dead, even though he had no connection to the guy. They shot him once in each eye, the back of the head, and in the stomach. At some point, you imagine, like, you know, the accomplice was like, dude, I think he's dead. But they kind of set an example with his murder. So they say when they arrested Willie Sutton that a police officer came and came up to him and said, hey, are you Willie Sutton? And he said, me? Hell no. I'm Gordon. Yeah, Charles Gordon. That's what they said he said, which not the best lying, I guess. Better disguises he has than lies. So he went to jail, and eventually in 1979 he was let out. He was in poor health, and he ended up dying in the one prison that no elderly person can escape, Florida. And also, famously, Willie Sutton is actually, they attribute the quote when they asked him, why do you rob banks? He said, because that's where the money is. He actually, in his memoirs, said that wasn't what he never actually said that, but still pretty cool. His memoirs were actually called That's Where the Money Was. So he still played a little wink wink to that quote, but a famous quote attributed to Willie Sutton, the most famous bank robber in United States history, was picked up right here at 340 Dean Street. Kind of cool. Not at this building. This building was built in 2009, sold for $1.4 million, and probably gone up a lot since then. But what can you do? You know, good old Willie. Yeah, still where the money is, and still robbing. They're still robbing, baby. Rob from the rich to give to the rich. All right, I don't want to go off too much there, but pretty cool story, huh, Eric?
It is pretty cool, and a good name to add to our pantheon.
What's that, Willie?
Charles Gordon.
That's Charles Gordon. So if anyone asks, hey, what are you guys filming? Are you Tom DNYC? I'll be like, no, I'm Gordon, Charles Gordon. All right, well, let's keep moving.
Okay, let's go.
All right, so we are now on Fulton Street. A couple blocks here. A lot of the stuff's been torn down, unfortunately, but we're in the vicinity of what would be 252 Fulton Street. We're actually right next to the family-owned Panda Express. You know, you need more mom and pop shops like Panda Express in New York, that's for sure.
The great Panda family.
Yeah, the dynasty, the Panda dynasty. Anyways, this is where 252 Fulton Street would have been back in the day, and this is the site of a very important arrest during the Cold War. So in 1957, a KGB colonel was arrested here, like I said, during the Cold War. It started, however, in 1953. So in 1953, in this neighborhood, at a different location, a newsboy is getting change for $1 so he can give to one of his customers some change, and he actually is given a hollow nickel. It falls down while he's walking outside in the street, and the nickel opens up, and he finds out that there's actually film inside of it. Crazy, right? So he takes it to the authorities. They're like, oh, this is kind of weird. They give it to the FBI, and they're like, oh, this looks like something that a spy would have or whatever. This is a Cold War, keep in mind. You know, it's microfilm or microfilm, as they would say in the movies, right? So a few years, they go to all the they go to all the magic shops. They're snooping around trying to figure out the mystery of this microfilm, of this microfilm. And then in 1957, 4 years later, May 1957, a KGB spy defects to the United States because he didn't want to go back to Moscow. He had kind of wanted to live in the United States, so he defects and he helps the authorities solve this kind of case, right? He actually tells the authorities that he had actually worked here in Brooklyn and he actually had served two different, superiors here in this neighborhood. One of them was named Mikhail and the other one was named Mark. Also, too, he helps them kind of decode what the microfilm said, right? The microfilm. It actually had a bunch of numbers in different columns and everything. So they find out who Mikhail was through all the digging, and they find out that he actually returned to Russia. They dig in to find Mark, and they find that he is actually still here, based on the descriptions of this spy who defected. So Mark, they trace him to a hotel in Midtown. He lived at the building here in 252. Fulton Street. The other spy had said that they had gone here for a storage room where he kept some of the film and stuff like that. They start surveilling the guy, and they eventually arrest him. They come and search his place, and they find a treasure trove of spy crud. You know, they find like, transistor radios. They find all kinds of like hollowed out coins and things like that. They find tons of books of Einstein, which is something you would fill your apartment with if you're trying to like impress people and make them think you're smart, you know. Oh yeah, just move those books about Einstein over and have a seat. Anyways, they also found a half-eaten cheese sandwich, which goes with his front, which was he was trying to pose as a starving artist. In fact, his neighbors were interviewed and they said they just thought he was an arty looking guy, a seedy looking fellow, which is kind of unfair too, you know, that kind of hits close to home, you know. I guess I'm arty and also seedy looking. Anyways, they arrest this guy and he goes to jail, right? He goes to jail for 30 years. So the actual spy's name was William Fisher, AKA Rudolph Ivanovich Abel. His alias was Emil R. Goldfuss. It's the most ridiculous, like, I mean, you want to try to fly under the radar, you got to kind of come up with something better than that. It's like, yeah, I'm just a regular American. My name is Jonathan P. Pumpsaddle. Nice to meet you. Anyways, they arrest the guy. He gets sentenced to 30 years for military and atomic espionage. Not exactly something you can just kind of, get a slap on the wrist for. I guess his defense was, whoops. But anyways, this is where kind of story gets even more interesting. So he goes to jail. A few years later, 1961, so this is 1957, in 1961, a man's U-2 spy plane crashes in Russia. His name was Francis Gary Powers. He becomes a Russian prisoner, an American, right? So they negotiate an exchange. So they exchange him for Francis Gary Powers, and he goes over to Russia and to the USSR, and never heard from again. Kind of crazy. He was living in this apartment here at 252 Fulton Street for $35 a month. My question is, what country do I have to betray to get that rent? Good Lord, sign me up. Interestingly enough, Francis Gary Powers ended up working as a helicopter pilot for a TV channel in Los Angeles, and guess what happened to him, Eric?
No idea.
His helicopter crashed, and he died in 1971. That's 2 aircraft crashes in one lifetime. Isn't that insane? What are the chances? I mean, I feel like at the end of his life, the helicopter's like malfunctioning. He just like looks into the camera and goes, "Oh, brother." Roll credits on his life, I guess. Anyways, that all happened right here, 252 Fulton Street. Insane. This is like a huge, arrest during the Cold War, a spy with microfilm, with books about Einstein, half-eaten cheese sandwiches, trading for a shot-down pilot in Russia. It's pretty nuts, huh? That happened all right here. That's a good story, right?
It is a good story.
Yeah, a lot of good stories here in Brooklyn. Very dark.
I would have found some 8mm porn on a bus once, but that's not quite the same.
Well, you hang out with some very arty and seedy looking characters, it sounds like.
A whole lot of cheese sandwiches.
Yeah. Well, that's the story of William Fisher, of KGB Colonel William Fisher, and the microfilm. So what do you think we go to the next spot, huh?
Yeah, let's go.
Let's do it. All right, so we're here at our final stop. We're at the low 100s block of Sterling Place here in Park Slope, where in 1960, a plane crashed. An 85-person United DC-8 crashed right in the middle of this block. That's insane. People don't even realize that when they walk through here. So the story is that this United flight was bound to JFK from Chicago, and it was passing over like New Jersey area, and it missed a clearance of that it was supposed to go, and it was going too fast. So it missed its clearance, and it actually collided in midair with a TWA Super Constellation flight with like 44 people on board. The wing of the United flight clipped the fuselage of the TWA flight, and the TWA flight went down immediately and crashed into Miller's Field in Staten Island, killing everyone aboard. Miller's Field is actually home to the New Dorp High School. Yeah, New Dorp, that's what it's called. Actually, that's where Method Man graduated from. That's kind of an interesting fact. Anyways, the TWA flight goes down there in Miller's Field, and what became New Dorp high school. But the actual United flight continued until it crash landed here, so miles later. And it crashed right in the middle of the block. Everyone died, all 85 people aboard, including 6 pedestrians and people. There was actually a church that was completely destroyed at 119 Sterling Place. It was called the Pillar of Fire Church. I didn't make that up, that's true. And also, there was one lone survivor. His name was Stephen Baltz, and he was actually ejected from the plane, and he survived, and he was badly burned. They took him over to the hospital here nearby where everyone was rooting for him. He was actually given the trip as a birthday gift for his 11th birthday to come visit family in New York, and he ended up dying the next day of his burns. Really sad, actually. He was able to talk for a little bit, but he eventually died, and he had change and coins in his pocket. And they took them and actually the dad donated them to the hospital as part of a donation to an ICU ward for pediatrics that eventually opened up there. They still have a plaque there in the hospital. And also, they have a plaque in Greenwood Cemetery in Sunset Park, which dates back to 1838. And Greenwood Cemetery, by the way, is from back when people used to, go hang out at cemeteries. It's crazy to believe that's before like Central Park and other parks. So, you would call your friend and be like, hey, you want to meet me at the cemetery? We'll walk around, and I'll pick up the White Claws. Let's meet at the McGillicuddy Mausoleum. It's kind of a weird, thing, but that's actually what they used to do. So it's a really nice cemetery. And if you look at the buildings here, in fact, at 123, you can see the pillars are discolored because of the brickwork that had to be fixed. Also, too, at across the street, 126, at the top you could see the actual brickwork is different as well at the top because it got clipped by the airline. And also, too, there's a building there where the sculptor who lives there actually repurposed some of the ironwork from Pillar of Fire for window, protections that he has there, window bars. I actually literally tried to contact him to interview him for this video. He told me to go dork myself. Well, he didn't respond, so pretty much the same thing. Anyways, it's hard to believe that a plane actually crashed here right in the middle of Park Slope. And at the time in 1960, this was kind of what they call an up-and-coming neighborhood. Today, rent here is like, $47,000 a day. That being said, this was all before. So the FAA actually was started in 1958 because of another air collision in 1957 above the Grand Canyon. And when this happened in 1960, this was the deadliest airline accident to date, which is pretty wild. Since that moment, they passed more laws in 1960. JFK actually signed more laws. They improved air traffic control, and there's actually only been 3 collisions since, which is kind of wild. None in the United States. Kind of interesting. A plane crashed in the middle of Brooklyn. What? So yeah.
It's insane to imagine. You look at the street.
I know, you can't tell. But if you got a good guide showing you the way, you can tell anything. That doesn't really make any sense, but
no,
yeah, I tried. Anyways, what do you think? Should we wrap this thing up, Eric?
Yeah, time to leave.
Let's do it. Look at that. And that was our day. What a day, huh, Eric?
Yes.
We saw and learned so much, didn't we?
We learned so much.
You learned a lot, didn't you?
Yes.
You're not just saying that because I shot the intro and outro at the same time, are you?
I hope the continuity's bad. I hope it's so dry the scene before.
Yeah. One of like the middle stories is going to be, completely sunny and beautiful. No, we did this all in chronological order. But anyways, guys, that was it. We learned a ton. Crazy stories here. Next time you're walking around with your grandma in Brooklyn, you can show her all these places, tell her these crazy stories, and she's gonna look at you and say, wow, you're my favorite grandson or granddaughter, and you're gonna remember this face. So you're welcome. But guys, if you liked it, check out the Patreon. There's some extras on there. Okay. Also, too, subscribe, like. Come on, that helps bump it. Once again, you bump it, above all the, cats falling in cardboard boxes and whatever people like to watch. Those cats love their cardboard boxes, don't they, Eric?
Very dry cats.
Very dry cats. Hopefully we'll be dry just like them one day very soon. But that was it, man. Pretty good episode, huh, Eric?
I believe so.
Yeah, let's.
I have faith that it was.
I do too. I have faith that it will be or was. Who knows? Movie magic. All right. Well, let's get into some kind of, dry place. I don't know if you can tell. It's windy. It's wet. But we did it for you, baby. We did it for you. All right, that's it.
Time to go, Tom.
Yeah, I know. All right, I'll see you guys later. Sick. Good Lord.